Oh, welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon. It is June 15th, 2013. Wow, man, Ramon. Okay, we are halfway through this year, and I'll tell you what, it's a freaking whirlwind out there in the world. I'll tell you, there is so many things going on.
Like that.
Oh man. And last week I talked about a little bit about how I was sensing the energies, and that I felt like there was energies were building and building, and it's like stacking on top of each other. That cumulative effect of energy that's been coming in, and during this last week, I honestly thought that the bubble was going to break somewhere, that something was going to happen on a really large scale. But surprise to my own surprise, I have got nothing but more energy building on top of what I was already sensing, and it just feels like something could break any time now. That's just the kind of the way I'm sensing it. I don't know. How are you feeling that stuff?
As far as like sensing energy, I don't. At the moment, I'm not feeling anything.
I mean, a lot of it's ugly, but that ugliness is waking people up, getting people. How'd that guy go in the movie Network? I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. People are starting to get there. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing. So we're having a couple of minor difficulties with keeping our guest online and keeping this Skype connection hooked up, but looks like I'm solid now. So
we started talking about the NSA, so
yeah. So just to let you guys know who we've got on the show tonight. We've got Seven with us tonight. If you guys have been listening to Truth Frequency for any length of time, or to the 100th Monkey Radio, you will know who Seven is. Seven is deeply involved in universal transformation and currently resides in Costa Rica. He possesses an atypical background that has led him to developing the resistance, exemplifying strength and infinite possibility of a person's creative spirit by not just giving opinions, but setting the example. The example being, one who was yesterday and is today is nothing similar to what one can be tomorrow. He has been a computer engineer, a gang member, a pastor, a CEO, a prisoner, an enlightener, telemarketer, clothes designer, convenience store clerk, promoter, inventor, cipherist, and many other rare and sometimes controversial positions, to arise as a quickener that can relate to people from all walks of life. Seven is currently working in Costa Rica, developing a community and virtual institute with the primary focus of neo-universalism, finding the common integers of all species in order to learn how to build bridges to a balanced mind, body, and soul. Now, if you guys want to check out his website while we are chatting tonight, you can go to www.resistance2010.com. And we are still trying to get hooked up with him. And, so what else has been going on while we're trying to connect, Ramon? Hello? Ramon? Did I lose you too?
No, my mic was muted. I'm here talking to a muted mic. It's so I have to say that there is it's kind of hard to get news these days, because you can't, I guess when we were growing up, you just listened to the news, and either A, they were telling more of the truth, or we just didn't know any better. But now we know better, so it's like it's kind of hard to get news, because these major networks, and even the sometimes you get false things and you don't know it's false till later. Seven, is that you?
Yeah.
Oh, yay. Connected. So I've already ran through the intro and everything, Seven, and man, you are an amazing guy. I just talked you up like you would not believe.
Oh man, awesome. I was actually on the line listening to you for a minute, and then we just had, I guess it was like a dropout for a minute, so I was just checking the sound to make sure that we were all ready to go.
Yeah, I think we're good. So finally, good old
Right.
Skype likes to bounces around once in a while.
Well, in the beginning of the show, I started mentioning the NSA, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. And then my phone call stopped.
They had to start the recorder. They, oh, shoot, we're late.
Yeah. So 7, man, it's been a while since we talked with you. Let's see, what was it? August of last year, I think it was.
Yeah, quite some time. Obviously, there's been major developments since then, but we've been moving. And I had sent out a request to get on because obviously you guys are continuously progressing. So I would like to just come in and share what has been gained, and just share with the brothers.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So what has been going on? What's I mean, a year is a long time in this world nowadays. I mean, time is like man, it's going fast.
It's warp speed.
Man, who are you telling? Like, even every day I experience how fast time is moving based on just how much time I have to really get things prepared. And especially with these shows, like every time you turn around, it's another show, and you're just trying to really get your content together and things so that way you can, take care of it. But, I just been noticing just these days that there's 2 levels of knowledge really segueing just the industry of spiritual expansion, and that's mainly synthetic knowledge, which is basically so close to the truth it even can pass off as the truth. And then there's the organic knowledge, which is basically what's always been going on with our spiritual expansion. I think what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to need to, because I'm catching a little bit of reverb, I'm going to need to switch out.
Okay, yeah, we're getting a little bit of a popping and clicking off of you too. So.
Oh yeah? Okay, so let me see if we can make a couple adjustments here in the studio. I do apologize. Let me see here.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so I'll play some elevator music.
So while he's taking care of that, Ramon, so I haven't really followed the news at all this last week. I've been busy as shit at work, but besides that, my mind's been just like, I don't know, I've been really, really contemplating the whole higher self and those guides and how they are interacting with us. And I don't know if it's that frustration thing coming up in me again or not. But
tell me about it.
But the way things are, I'm just talking my own personal life here. There seems to be, I don't know if this goes back to that whole energy building type thing or not, but I seem to be like treading water, so to say, not really moving forward and not going backwards, but it's kind of, I don't know, frustrating. And I've been doing my damnedest to put in those meditations and find those spots and work on my communication skills and I'm just not getting anything.
Yeah, doesn't it feel like some days, like when you go to meditate, it's like it feels like the first time, like you're unexperienced meditator?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're like, what the hell is going on? I don't know how to do this anymore.
Okay, guys, if you give me like just a couple more minutes, I'm about to knock this thing out of the park. You already know I'm trained to go. I'm just trying to, this whole thing, I tell you, when we get ready to launch off the launch pad, there's always us having to check the systems. It's like a plane flight. You always got to check the tires and check the elevation, etc. And then, you get a chance to take off. So, I would love to do that before the show, but it just never works out like that. I think that's what keeps it grassroots.
No problem, Seven. Yeah, gotta love live radio, right?
Oh yeah, man. Especially the feeling when it goes live. I just work to transcend that character because obviously I'm always doing shows over here, and the more it seems like the more equipment that you purchase to get things in a better condition, the more technical support you need to do. And I probably I'm a part of technical support. I can imagine David Icke. I was laughing the other day. I was like, I can imagine David Icke or Jordan Maxwell behind the switcher, which is obviously, some of this technical equipment that you have to use to even broadcast. And then from that point, just going to hit the gym because, we're into these explosive workouts. And then going in late at night and hitting up the Esoteria and then, to see, what's really going on in the world. And that's really kind of the tune of what's going on here. I feel like there's more or less a new breed of individuals coming in and actually delivering this massive message. And the message is getting more massive. Obviously, many of us need to be updated. I'm a teacher that loves to be taught. Obviously, we're expanding into the great arcanum. That's really all of our desires, is to actually tap into the energy of limitlessness and or the limitless energy. And that's something I can actually deliver to people. I can tell them exactly how they get themselves tapped into that. And I can also explain a lot of the stuff that's been going on as far as, at least for the last 6,000 to 7,000 years with the major stumbling block within our knowledge, or the break in the chain, or even the pushing down of the ladder. And so let me just do something here really briefly and bring up my notes. Obviously, I have a show also tomorrow, so this is going to be more or less, I won't even say a warm-up, but in many tenses, just the potency of the message in itself has to be reiterated quite a few times before it's actually grasped, even for myself.
Right.
And but, just before we even start, I know there's definitely a lot of things going on in the world. Obviously, they have a new puppet in Iran. And, the whole game is just basically like, hey, look, there's a fire over here, and then we run over there, and then, hey, look, it's a fire over here, and then we run over there, and, oh, look, it's Prism, oh, look, it's this. And then, it really has us like this group of lemmings that every time there's a direction to run in, we go in that direction. And then, and I'm not saying just everyone on this line or people on this line, because some people may take it personal. That's not what I'm doing. I'm talking about the masses, which is still moving the collective consciousness of this planet. And I started to figure out some deeper levels of the mathematics behind how many people that are conscious, or that you can expect to be conscious on the planet at one time until you go into higher levels of extension for the whole planet. And that's genuinely based on what percentage of the brain the overall population is using.
Right.
So if you say, let's say 3 to 5% or 5 to 7%, then that 5 to 7% is what you're going to find as far as how many individuals are actually conscious, because that it really is what controls consciousness, is your brain power, right? So it's just basically reverse engineering some of the numbers and actually seeing, well, how many people should I expect to be conscious on some type of level where they can grasp any level of a spiritual message, and that's about 1 out of 20. But don't be surprised if that 1 out of 20 is basically into a religion, because that also rolls in the spirituality. Any person that's on a pursuit of ethereal essences and ethereal expansion, which you can't see with your physical eyes, is generally a stretch for the state of consciousness that we found ourselves in on this planet. But again, like, man, I want you guys to say something, man. I need just 2 more minutes because I'm locking down my notes here real quick, and then we're going to get going with this. But obviously, I'm going to get into some heavy stuff. I've been personally. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things I've been noticing is that even though a lot of our media is full of a lot of false hopes and false information, at the same time, there is a lot of little gemstones stuck in the, excuse the word, in between the shit.
If you know how to read between the lines, you can see it, Ramon.
Yeah. So, for example, yesterday I was watching the TV, a new movie called Escape from Earth, and it was just showing how, from an alien's point of view, they would come here in peace, and then they would get locked in jail and forced to like work for building technology and stuff in the movie. And you see how the general was kind of like a megalomaniac, and that's not far stretched from the truth, because
I feel like the alien too.
Yeah, it seems like everything we invent, it has to be turned into a weapon, and if it can't be turned into a weapon, then we want nothing to do with it. So, I'm finding that more and more. So at the same time, that shows to me like the level of consciousness that's growing, because I think more and more people are putting it in slowly and not just hitting it all at once, because again, there's still you know, Hollywood is still stuck with that whole thing of if it bleed, it leads. So if we don't have any, you know, bleeding, then they say that nobody will listen to it.
Yeah, Seven brought up a really good point about the percentage of of the potential consciousness on the planet, and a lot of that being rolled into religions, and that just kind of brought to my mind that I guess that makes our real task kind of clear cut. It's reaching that conscious population, and in particular those that are folded within those religions, and getting them to look outside of the box a little bit and really see what's going on instead of being led. Because I feel like there's the majority of those are playing the game and following the leader, you know. So.
For sure. I mean, following definitely the religious dogmas have everything to do with the defunctness of the spiritual condition of the individual these days. But of course, it gets a lot more deeper. It gets all the way to the time where everyone knew about basically astrotheology and our connection with the universe, and then all of a sudden that gets wiped out.
Right.
And if you look into every culture, you'll find they have a story of the Golden Age, and then you'll find generally, if you check back up on them, especially in recent times, something happened. Like if you go into the jungles of Mesoamerica or into the Aztec countries, etc., you'll find in their literature this idealism of a golden age and times in which they lived during that, and things that have happened when they lived during that time. But then in the condition that you find them in, no plumbing, no magnetics, no able to move large stones, basically barely even able to make it, you have to then come to the conclusion that, okay, something happened.
Right.
And now the other ploy that's been going on is basically comparing Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon man as being the man that actually existed during that time. And actually, I got a silence on the line. I'm not sure. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Oh, okay. That was just super clear. Okay, I see somebody muted. But yeah, so again, to say that the Neanderthal man and the Cro-Magnon man was any comparison to the men that were living during that times also in other parts of the country is very similar to comparing all the men in the world also with the Australian Bushman. This is nothing against the Australian Bushman, but you have to realize that different types of men live on the planet simultaneously.
Right.
And just because you go and grab the one that doesn't seem to be that intelligent and then try to make that the benchmark in the actual
for all of society.
Archetype of all
Right.
of us, it's never going to be correct. So let us get into first there, because this is obviously a spiritual thing. That's the only place that we're going to find the solutions for our issues that we're dealing with now. If we deal with things on a physical plane, then we'll only be getting the product of things that take place on a higher dimension, and so in many cases that's hacked. And we're going to talk about that later on, which is what's going on with the moon and what they really did when they went up there, which people can't seem to put together these days, but I will put it together for them about what they did to the moon to make all of our urges and many of our senses actually go awry. So first I want to start with the riddle, because I've become a real big fan of riddles these days, and cracking riddles, especially those that have been going on in our reality for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And one of those riddles is about a place between heaven and earth. And this often puzzles people because there's supposed to be a location, as you see in the ancient texts, even of the more current plagiarized texts, such as the Greek text, but also in the ancient times, you find a location of a great deal of the entities and beings that were existing and fill up our myths and our religions today. You find them being located there. So the first thing to do is to locate this place between heaven and earth. And obviously a person, especially on a physical level, would begin to look in the sky and start imagining if there could be something living in the clouds. Okay? But what's happening is that this is what happens when we lean on our external understanding of things, or that would be, in fact, understanding, because it never really gets you anywhere near the truth, especially as an immortal being. You have to look into the inside, or what we call the microcosm, the microcosmic version of the place between heaven and earth. And so where that is then, I'll get on with it, is heaven obviously is the spirit. Everyone can agree. Earth is obviously the body. So that leaves only one more primary conscious vehicle that we utilize every single day and that is very vivid, and that's the mind. So this place between heaven and earth is actually our mind. And that's why all of the tales and all the different entities and all this stuff is very subjective to who you're talking to whether they believe that exists or not. Because if it's not in their place between heaven and earth, i.e. their mind, then it's just not there for them. It doesn't exist for them. And also, especially for us that have been working on the spiritual path for a long time, we have to get used to working with ethereal results, meaning not looking for results on a physical level, but definitely paying attention to what kind of ethereal occurrences happen when we're dealing in that field. Because every time we move over to working with things on a spiritual level, but then go back into looking for something immediately on the physical level, at times we'll miss it. And this is how we'll start the message today.
That's actually a good deal, because that's one stumbling block that I'm dealing with right now too.
Yeah.
Well,
that
we all do. We got a break.
We have a caller on the line. I don't know.
Already?
Do we want to wait or?
Yeah, I think we should wait, because
okay.
I can get heavy duty in here, or I could get on the sidetrack and start telling people what their dreams mean. They're like, tell me, I had this dream.
Yeah,
tell me what it means.
Let's wait till the second hour.
Okay. What are my time brackets, by the way?
We're 7 to 9, so.
Okay, and do we have a break or?
Yeah, we're coming up on a break. I just sent you on Skype the clock, so if you click on that,
sweet.
you can see. So we have 2 minutes before our next break.
Okay, I just wanted to know that way I don't get into the massive stuff and then it'd be like to be continued.
Oh, right.
So I guess for the next 2 minutes, I would encourage people to take a breath and. Instead of, like I said, the meditation is like a weapon. So in every tense, we use it to actually cause an effect. So if a person has a projection of something that they would like to receive, it would be now the best time to breathe that in and to breathe it out, because obviously breath is a form of communication. Like you could tell when I go, you could tell that I'm tired of dealing with the situation, right? So that was me just saying an entire thing with my breath. So of course there's more than negative things that you can say. So I encourage people to take that breath of feeling like, okay, I'm about to get the meat of this thing, even though I'm a vegan, and that's going to really level me up, because I level up all the time. It's a serious thing going on over here for us, and we're always benefiting off of this. But the only sorrow that may ever enter is that other individuals haven't chose to engage in themselves. And so this conversation will be about an individual and exactly how they are the universe. And it's going to prove it in such a way that it can't be denied. Just as I can prove that because you're made out of atoms, you already have an unlimited power, no matter what anyone tells you and no matter how they make you feel. But do you have access to
let's hold on to that thought for 3 minutes. All right, you're listening to the 100th Monkey Radio Show. We'll be back after these few minutes.
Oh, welcome back to the 100th Monkey Radio, guys, with Tom and Ramon on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, and we have 7 with us tonight. 7, man, this whole thing about showing everybody that they are the universe and the universe is inside. That's really intriguing, very intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, it has to start first with to let everyone know where they are, though, because maybe everyone's not feeling right now that they're a universe, right?
Right.
So how does that occur? And so let us first take what kind of essence is moving through us and where it's actually located. I think we may decide to reconnect the call, possibly. Is that what I'm hearing?
Not right now.
Yeah, it's terrible right now. So let's go ahead and run through, and what we'll do is at the top of the hour we'll reconnect.
Okay, fine. So again, where is a person actually located in their consciousness? And obviously, consciousness is somewhat infinitesimal, meaning that our spirit can be infinitely small and infinitely large, and it chooses this more compressed, just like what you would see with a magnet. It's more of a compressed energy field. It has a lot more power. So it was already known by the ancients that where our seat of our consciousness generally is in the pineal gland, and that was looked at as a throne. And so if you can imagine yourself then as just like on the Men in Black, I think they had one part where they opened up the guy's head and the little alien was sitting in the top part of the brain. So if you can now see yourself on somewhat of that state of consciousness where you're this basically all-powerful, all-knowing being, but you've chosen a vehicle just like you would choose a car to drive in. And of course, just as a car has certain levels of limitation, it can't go and make food, and it can't go and sit down and take a break. It has limitations. So this vehicle that we have been in now has some limitations, but it's also very magnificent. It can't even be compared to a physical vehicle, or a man-made vehicle. So what you're now looking at is then, actually, in every sense, it's a man-made vehicle. Excuse me, I have to watch my terminology here because this is something that we projected, something that we created, and it is magnificent. So I do, again, always check myself on the proper terminology. So if you can see yourself then as first being in the throne of your consciousness, what you'll then notice is that just a head running around, or actually wouldn't even be able to run around, is virtually useless on a physical reality. Just imagine yourself with all your consciousness and everything, and then you're just this head. And, we sit you on the counter, and then every time it's time to go, we got to carry you over somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera. You have no mobility. So what was agreed then is that there would be added armaments, which is basically then more like the whole Voltron thing, where you choose to add senses or other abilities that work in the third dimension or the physical plane. And this is where you get the rest of the body. And that's why the head is a globe. It's basically the one of the only things in our body that's modeled after a globe beside our eyes, but our eyes are, of course, located in our head. The rest of the body is based on other geometry, which is basically other planetary geometry, but mainly that of physical planes. So if you can then take the lower half of your body and say that is your agreements. These are the animal essences. These are the what you see in the Sphinx as a composite deity: earth, wind, fire, water. These are the other elements that are necessary for you to move around into a three-dimensional reality. So this is basically what you made agreements with. Now, all this works well when you are the instructor, meaning that you're basically a king or queen. This is not a genderized thing, but you are basically the ruler of your own universe. We call it the Interverse. Your position is in the throne of your mind, and you command from there. Now, this is how the standard apex human with the spirit inside carried on their daily life before the schism, or before the fall down the ladder. Okay? They utilize this mind over matter, this ethereal energy, all the essences, etc., and directed the building of this reality. Okay? Now you can see why the reality is so affluent with things that only we could do. Thousands and thousands of flowers, thousands and thousands of kinds of trees, different kinds of insects. I've seen this behavior before. It's not iPhone 4 or iPhone 5. It's a whole nother level of creating more and more things, right? 'Cause we're creators. But what occurred is that, now imagine then the lower part of the body almost itself in more of a lower state of consciousness, a lower vibratory frequency. It's actually learning from the higher parts of the body. And how it learns is based on your actions, what you do. That's why what you eat is what your body feels. That's the real as above, so below. What you put in your mouth is going to affect your body. So what happens is with our spiritual being is that our spiritual being sitting in a throne always gets suggestions from the lower kingdom. These are called urges. I want to go and do this. I want to eat that. And as the ruler of the body, you're simply supposed to rebuke it. No, stay in your place, keep building. Eventually, you'll be able to do whatever you want because you'll get to this level. You see what I mean? There has to be a communication going on inside of your body. There's
Right.
a communication going on anyway, and you can tell that because every time you lay down and get ready to go to sleep, there's a lot of communication that goes on that's not verbal. And I am getting a little bit more feedback here. But so then there's also, in many tenses, again, okay, so let me just rewind here. So there's a communication going on inside your body, and you need to command your body. But the body is always suggesting things, and this is why the cleansing becomes a major part of our entire emancipation these days on the planet, because we have all of these entities, worms, bacteria, frequencies of a lower nature, viruses, always asking for things so that they can thrive. Because remember, every single organism on this planet is hardwired with a thought to survive. It's in the DNA. So you can't fault something else, whether it's a hybrid reptilian, I think they're saying is running around here, or a small earthworm, what's called an earthworm, but it's not the one that you use to fish, but other earthworms that are parasites inside the body also trying to survive. And then how this all connects is that when you get the urge to do many of the things that you couldn't even imagine, it comes from these worms and these parasites trying to get what they need to thrive. So even the idea of wanting bread and even the idea of wanting meat and all this come from another state of consciousness, because the being that I'm referring to that is in the throne of the mind doesn't eat. It doesn't need that. Look at, again, your head alone. Does it need food and all of that? No. It only needs certain liquids, substances, minerals, etc. So this is why when I say your body is a universe, this is where you can start doing the split apart thing for a moment, meaning starting to branch off parts of the body and see that the torso is Taurus. It is the actual, just like what you see in the Seven Sisters of the Pleiades, it is that constellation. You got the arms, A-R-M-S, or Mars, M-A-R-S. That's where you get your war, get your dukes up. Let's fight, right? And then you got the legs, which are the ones carrying around all of the burdens of the upper kingdom. That's your mass, your ass, A-S-S. You see? So all of this was known, and this is what I come to tell not only you gentlemen, but everyone on the line. I have documentation because I kept pursuing this. I've been in this for 5-6 years now, just on a consistent level, but all my life trying to figure out what happens after you die. And I finally started coming into bodies of knowledge written by men that are erased from this planet almost, and them explaining this fluently about how the body is the universe, and this is how to become a master over your universe, which controls your world, meaning that it's easy to control your world when you can control the innerverse. Because one is more superior than the other. And when we're talking about superiority, this is a product of a dimension that is built on light. Light has 7 rays. So that's 7 wombs, basically, of division. When you get beyond all the division, the clear face guys, I call it, the clear beam, when you get into that, that's when you're starting to talk about full totality, et cetera, et cetera. But in the matrix, which is known also as matrices or a womb, place where things are cultivated, there's lots of division or darkness going on here that needs to be brought to the light. Now, maybe skipping around a little bit here, but just imagine then that what the physical realities are so far away from the control point or the actual light that it's only the light that's inside of us that shines through this. And this is why, and I'm getting into too many different concepts here, but I will bring it all back in. But this is why when you look in the night sky right now, the stars are not as bright as they used to be. They're not as bright as they used to be because the humans are running out of energy. When they charge back up, there is no night. You see what I mean? The sky is so bright at night with what you call stars, which are charged up human beings, there becomes no night. Thus, there is no division. Remember, night and day is the division. That's why those who practice quote-unquote dark magic Do it thus under the symbols of nocturnal creatures, wolves, owls, bats, etc., because it is a symbol of the other side of the division, or the shadow world, also known as the Shaddai or the Shadim or the demon world. Okay? But I still come to tell people that, listen, a demon is more conscious than an electron. So you're talking about fields that you can't even start labeling off of what's good and what's bad. You just need to be in the know. You're everything. So on a physical reality, you're automatically limited because you can't be everything at one time. You can't tie your shoes, go wash clothes, take care of your baby, do a radio show. You can't do all that at one time. But in your mind, you can. In the inside, in the spirit, it's the only thing that's capable of feeling that it's everything. So we knew all of this. This is why we made certain adjustments. We had times in our day, like you see, you still dream, you still go down and you take your sleep. This happens naturally. We had times that we said, okay, physical body time, and then we went and we ran the gauntlet like a cheetah. Okay, mental body time, then we went and studied more of our creations to understand greater levels of perfection. Right? And then, okay, spiritual time, then you just unplugged, untethered from the vehicle altogether, and then swooned out into limitless energy. So this was what we were doing before the schism. Now we have to start talking about, okay, well, what is this schism? What could have occurred that knocked humanity off this ladder of high states of consciousness? The next level of growth. Some people are looking for me to talk about the Venusians or somebody else. But it's the next level of growth. It's called mitosis. It's when you divide or die. Die means two, as in dice. So when you divide, man and woman now. Not just man and woman in the same body. If you don't think man and woman in the same body, why does man have breasts on his chest? He still has mammary glands. If you want to really see how important it is for a physical body to gauge a gender, all entities are still non-gendered. It's just a game that we're playing when we do this male-female thing, attracting to another pole. So what happens is that we find a time in our text where there was a split. We decided to go into mitosis. And then from that point, there will be attraction between the two, just as there's attraction between two opposite sex. Or anything that becomes your urge, there is an attraction. That attraction creates energy. The entire world is built on attraction. That's why in the ancient books you see they say if the fertility goddess left, this is how they bundle it in the metaphor, if the fertility goddess left, none of the animals would mate, nobody would do anything. This means that if there was no attraction between each other, then there wouldn't be no energy to power a physical reality. It would be very clear how illusional it was. But with this positive attraction you see in a generator. This is how a generator was developed. Now, let's sidebar for a moment. There was never a time, except for short periods, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years, in retrospect, very short periods to immortality. There was never a time when someone would actually say, hey, I've lost, oh, excuse me, oh my goodness, I actually just kind of lost the train of thought here, but let me get on top of this for a moment, man. Like, trust me, the message again today is just explosive, but I just have to think about what I was saying for a moment and then gather my thoughts. And then if you guys want to say anything now, just because I've been talking so much, you can go ahead and chime in.
Oh, no worries. I'm eating it up.
Nah. With the
Okay. Maybe everyone may have to unmute, or maybe I'm not even on the line.
No, you're on the line. Can you hear me now?
Ramon, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear.
We can hear you.
Okay, so maybe I'm still on air, so I'm just going to keep going like I'm on air. So, which I really am. Everyone has to realize that everything came from air. Okay, they do hear me, but I don't hear you guys, but I'm going to keep going with it. So everything came from air. How this is really working is that every variation that you see, whether it's fire or water, is only slowed down air. This is why when you slow down air to a certain point, it starts to condense, and then it becomes water. If you speed up air to a certain point, it actually becomes fire. This is the knowledge of why everything came from one thing on the physical plane. And only because of just the noises I'm hearing in the background, I'm having a little trouble keeping my thought here. But let me just go to my notes, and then I'll talk just about about mainly just this schism that's taken place, and that'll kind of get me back to what I was originally talking about. But basically, what you're dealing with then, when the male and the female begin to split, then there's attraction between them. And then what that attraction does is it creates energy that actually powers a physical reality. All the attractions power physical realities. So what I was actually saying earlier that I forgot is that you'll never see anyone in history, except for sometimes 1,000-year segments to 9,000-year segments, saying that they don't know anything and that they're having a hard time inventing something and that they're lost. You won't find any of that, because everything that we have in our reality right now that is making us feel like and making us think that we've actually achieved something was modeled after the human body. All the generators, the televisions, the satellites, all the things, even the spaceship, all of the things that we're thinking are the height of our knowledge and our intellect were taken from the body. So if you just would think of that, then you can realize why the first apex beings to step on this planet were not ignorant to all of the things that we know now, but so much more. So you can also see why the knowledge of how the body is the universe and how everything is created from the body, and there can be several variations of things put into a physical reality that correspond to things that you could find in the body, is because some groups of individuals wanted to take the knowledge and then begin to create things that they can tell everyone, we created this. We did this. We are the creators. We are the gods. And this is where you get the schism also in spiritual texts, because there was a time where when Ptolemy became ruler of Egypt, he issued an edict across the land, and he told all of the individuals that had spiritual books that if they had some type of spiritual book of wisdom that they felt was up to par, then they can bring it to him and he would give them money for it. And this, because many men were scribes then, this amounted to becoming the library of Alexandria, of what was mainly contained in that library. They had all of the spiritual books from around the world because of what Ptolemy did. So it wasn't long before his scribes, etc., came to him, and his wise men came to him and said, it looks like that all the religions are the same except for the differences in the cultures. And all of them are basically astrotheology. There's a sun god. The sun god is first born in a cave. Then he has to defeat the clouds and the illusion and then shine forth. That in between these stages, he would go through these different rays of light, which were basically chakras. That's why Revelations has 7 seals. That's the 7 chakras, the 7 churches. The Kundalini comes up and then it breaks all the seals and then it frees the individual, right? So all of the documents that you're reading that these people have put in front of us as religion have been taken from the body. Helios Biblia, meaning Helios, sun, Biblia, book, the sun book. But the sun is not a man. The sun is an androgen. Any type of energy force, like what you're seeing in the sky, let's say that sun, S-U-N, has to have a positive and a negative pole to kick off that much energy. So this is why I was talking about early in the conversation about the etymology, how playing with the language, they made the word sun synonymous with a male to create an animosity, not attraction, but an animosity between the masculine and feminine poles. Now remember, these masculine and feminine poles have still nothing to do with what we call male and female, but everything to do with the attraction of returning back to original self. You see what I mean? So whatever you look at and you feel like it'll get you closer to original self, you're attracted to that. So this, of course, breaks down this whole gender thing and how we're going to deal with why some people are born attracted to males and why some people are born attracted to females. It's because there was an original state to be attracted to self. Now, there's been an extreme, all of what you're seeing in the reality has been interpolated. It's been turned inside out. The God's knowledge, which is really our knowledge, we're the gods, has been taken and then externalized. And this And then we've been locked out of the knowledge. And this is why most people are experiencing so many problems, because they can't now feel that they are the controller. They can't feel that they are God. They can't feel that they're the supreme being. And this cutoff has gone on for a period of time. This is why the character that they're calling Saturn, which has nothing to do with the planet, it's the inverted version of the planet, carries this scythe in the hand. Because the scythe has cut off, like the cutting of an umbilical cord, has cut off the being on a synthetic level. They think that they're cut off from their planet by engaging in these inverted Saturnalian principles. So you see, when you start taking all of like I said, the astrotheology, the gods, what they're supposed to correspond to, first of all, if you trace that knowledge coming from Rome by way of Egypt, after the conqueror of Egypt, then you know that that knowledge is all, you're going to have to turn it inside out. Once you turn it inside out, then you'll find the truth. This is why it resonates so much to external people, because they feel some type of association with it, but they just can't put their finger on it, so they join. To later on figure out it somehow doesn't live up to their expectation, because it's still everyone but them. All these spiritual doctrines and religions, they're all going to the bus in front of me, because they all teach to push your energy out when a torus pushes its energy in. All energy fields are like a donut. The energy is coming in. And then it's dispersing that energy out from there. And so these directions, these principles wouldn't be so complex if we had been instructed by them from the beginning. However, it becomes very complex now only because we're trying to put it over such complex firmware. Meaning that now we become so complex, we expect these huge answers for something as simple as saying, all is self. This is the highest maxim. No matter how long it takes for you to figure that out, that's how long you'll be here in division. This is a shadow world. This is only an image of the real thing. And you want it to be that way. Would you ever want to accept that this was the height of whatever we could really do?
Oh, God, no.
Looking at the TV and seeing bombs being blown up and 11 women and children dying? Of course, this couldn't be our peak. So it isn't. That's what I'm coming to tell people. Like, what you have to realize is once they went to the moon, and I guess we'll have to get into this a little bit after the break. But we now need to get into the urges. Like, what leads you in one direction or the other? What tells you should go do this? And then you listen. And first, we'll rewind a little bit more and talk about how that happens. Now, we talked about earlier how you're in this seat of the soul. And once you're in this seat, you're now making the judgments of what should take place in the kingdom. So if something from the lower body says, I want to do this, you judge whether it's going to work for it or not, and then you make the decision. Now, remember, the lower body is not evil. It may say, I want to go take a run. And then, of course, the mind and the soul just say, yeah, let's go run. So not all the inclinations from the lower body, especially when it's in pristine shape, are like, hey, let's go and eat a cheeseburger. So let's get it clear here. I'm not demonizing the low body. So what I'm saying is though, as long as there's a good judge up there, or a good king, as it used to be called, in the seat on the throne of your mind, in the holiest of holies, there's never any problems. But what happens if you take the suggestion from a worm? Meaning you take the suggestion from a lower state of consciousness, i.e. a reptile. An urge from the lower body that says, I want to go and eat that. And that's something that's not good to eat. Now, what literally occurs here is what you find in the Puranas, the battlefield of Arunja. Now, something from the lower world, i.e. a demon, this is how they put it all into a story and a metaphor, has come up to the gates of the throne and demanded that something be done that is going to throw off the kingdom. Generally, they would not even be listened to, and he would be thrown back into his place and told to build the jet. But in our reality, we're taking these suggestions, and what this does is it actually takes the king, queen, whatever, and throws them off the throne. Let me get some water here. It takes them off the throne of their consciousness, and then their position is switched with whatever or wherever that idea came from.
Right.
So if that idea came from, let's say, the groin or the gonad area of the body, excuse me, Get some water here. So if that idea came from there, then the apex being, or the one that's living in the seat or on the throne of the brain, is now switched there. And this was known as the battle that took place in
million
heaven.
downloads.
Sorry, so
This
we're
is the
coming
We
on
Are
a break.
Change Manifesto.
Listening to 100
no.
This is the
Radio.
Okay, so
Zeitgeist
I guess that's 1
Manifesto.
minute. We're going to a break. I guess
This
we'll call back
manifesto
in a minute.
shoots from the hip. It takes no
Bonus
prisoners.
about
Apart
the battle in
from Tony
Okay.
Blair.
Yeah.
Britain
So,
Fight
so
back.
guys, during the break, I'm gonna
You're
shut
listening
down and
to a special broadcast of
reconnect.
the Truth Frequency.
London calling. This is London. London.
On your way through this hard venture, you will be tested.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network.
Oh, welcome back, guys. You're listening to 100th Monkey Radio. We have 7 with us tonight. And 7, wow, you can hear us now, right?
For sure. I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Oh, that's awesome. We got some stuff ironed out during the break, and we're going to carry on. So, 7, the moon has intrigued me for my whole life. I mean, completely intrigued me. And once I was able to when I learned how to do astral projection, out-of-body travel, I've had several times where I have attempted to make it to the moon. And for whatever reason, something always either interrupts me and I end up slammed back in my body, or it just one time I felt like I was in molasses. And it was like I just couldn't move that direction. There's just something that seems bizarre with the moon on the astral planes too.
Right. So you asking me to elaborate on the moon?
Oh yeah, you were going to go into it a little bit, and
okay, yeah. Well, that's the thing about the moon. What is one of the Jordan Maxwell? I think he says, I don't know what it is, but I know what it isn't. No, but
right.
It's one of those things where I have this thing I call the moon theory, and it's ever evolving. It's basically me documenting all the information that I ever come into about the moon as a whole, and that actually is a lot of information. And what it seems to coil us back into is that the moon itself originally was one of the first physical entities that were born on the planet. Okay? And this is what the moon corresponds to. They say that it's the Lord, or the lowered, L-O-W-E-R-E-D, or L-O-R-D, that it is basically the closest celestial body from our Earth, which would be pretty important, right? So what happens here is that when we look into the mythology and then we look into some etymology, what we find is that the moon is connected with the king. But remember, the moon is not a male, and that's why I keep trying to tell people, man, don't allow your mind to short circuit and you start thinking when I say a king and a queen, a male and a female, these are only the terms that we're using. Anything that can make or cause generation has both principles within. So just to make that clear, it's like my disclaimer.
right.
So what happens is that now, obviously, the moon as an androgen then was basically a funkendator of the planet, as it is even now. And from that point, you get the story of first the good king, which is basically the first humans that came on the earth were basically tilling the garden. They were creating new things here. They were planting seeds that they had gotten from other places. Seeds are ideas, by the way.
Right.
And so that whole thing was going on, and this started to sprout this kingdom that we call Earth. Now, there's at this point already a split in the road between most states of consciousness, especially in religion, because supposedly this kingdom was created then by the devil in their text. While in another text, the kingdom was created by the God or the supreme being. You see what I mean? Right. So you got to realize that this is the fork in the road for all religions, is that some believe that it was created by the devil and some believe it was created by the supreme being. So I know that it was created by both. That's where my power is. I'll tell everyone today, like, that's where your power will be. You merge both of these positive and negative forces, the black snake, the white snake. You got to merge these two energies together and ride the straight and narrow path up the Caudacious, which you see there's a pole in the middle going right to the orb. That's your head. That's the straightest path that you need to go with. But remember now, then there's a physical king on earth. Okay, now as kings and these things go, now this is an androgynon, by the way. A king or a Malachim is an angel. Okay, that's why the language of the kings is known as the Malachim, the language of the Malachim. Okay, now you always see them say angels are non-gendered. This is because they're actually transgender. They are male females. Okay, so this was the state of the king, and you'll see this in the alchemical work known as rebus. You see a man and a female in the same body, both of the genitalia is somewhat like a hermaphrodite, right? Right. So this is when you get the connection that Hermes, meaning son of her. Mes, M-E-S, means son of. Her obviously has something to do with the generative principle. So son of her, Hermes, was the actual entity that was here that brought this knowledge about basically what they call Rhoda, which is now encrypted as tarot. As you see, it's Rhoda, as in all wheels rotate. So this is how you pick it all apart in the etymology and see that the tarot is the wheel. That is the book of thought. That is the Hotem or Hotep Tahuti knowledge of how the entire wheel works that was brought here to earth in the myth of Prometheus bringing fire to man. Fire then being a pentagram or a blazing star. A pentagram being 72 degrees times 5, which is 360 degrees, which gives you a perfect circle. So you see, this kind of knowledge was what was here on earth about how exactly to master the body and thus master all subsequent spheres. Now, this is also, and I have to go into, part of my message today, this is why the controllers, quote unquote, the controllers, they don't want to move out of this dimension. They're not big fans of new things. That's why they keep antiques around. T is always at 12. It's repetitious reptilian behavior. One gene, Sobek, a crocodile. You see, it looks the same now, looks the same then. It's only holding up the foundation to the worlds, Ouroboros. You see what I mean? An entity that is agreed to remain behind. Now, that's why he's blind. So the thing is that our world exists in something far more expansive. This is why we're being encouraged to stay in this lower state of consciousness, stay in this reptilian state of consciousness, right? But this is just a part of us, but it doesn't make up all of us. Now, let's get into this knowledge a little bit more then about the king. I want to see the king because the king is connected to Moloch. Moloch means king. Moloch gives you, in Kabbalah, MLK, which means milk. Now, you see why the moon is about mooing, and moo has a lot to do with cows, because cows were the currency, meaning cows are the current. Notice how back in the old days, not only you have a milk, which all babies must suckle from, but you also have our first trade. If you see on the first coin that was ever minted, there was only the first letter of the language, which was a cow's head. Because if you go into all of the ancient countries, ancient Asia, etc., how everyone paid for things was by how well your wife looked and how big your hut was, and all that depended on how much livestock you had, mainly this cow, because it gave us the milk, it gave us the cheese. It was one of the closest entities to us. It was a gateway. All animals are gateways and portals of our consciousness, of us reaching to this apex. We built this thing. It's a bridge. It's not just one point appearing out of nowhere. Such things can't hold in the abyss. They feel, again, too sluggish in the abyss. What happens is you have to spread out an entire net. That's what our DNA does. Our DNA keeps growing in an area that basically has no limits, but it's in many tenses like fledgling. This is a secure process. Like we're trying to grow in a basically a world that's like an ocean. You never know when a shark's going to come through. You just have to know how to be prepared for those kind of things. And in addition to that, there is a space where no sharks come through, meaning that there's no such thing as death. It's something that we invented to create more things and to drive another level of energy. That's what I was explaining in the beginning of this conversation. How these worlds are built is when some entities are told, don't go down there, stay away from there. Now, for any Malachim, this means go.
Right.
Because the main thing that exists here that doesn't exist there is fear. Notice how I snuck up on a praying mantis the other day, and boy, he was scared. And I said, isn't this nothing? This thing is scared too. So it's not just the humans that are scared here. Everything is scared. Fear is a frequency that is pervading all life forms. So this is when I get back to the moon, okay? So now more Malachim, because remember, all this knowledge I'm telling you is in the Arab text. Wuju al-Quran. They'll never tell you about this. It was profane to write this in any other language beside a fire language. This is a fire god, meaning that the first state of the Malachim was a shining one. So that means it was like shining, and everything that was around it that became its children were like still in reverence and respect to it because of the shining thing. You see what I mean? So this is what happens. If you always respect your father, who's basically like a father, mother, mapa, if you always respect it because it's like basically holding this high level of power and energy, right? So there's always a level of respect that comes from stuff like that. But what if just because the children begin to deteriorate, the power is lost within the parent because the parent is the child. So as we begin to be fruitful and multiply, an insinuation as if everything was depleted or everyone left at a certain point, there became an aggressive level of multiplication that was not normal for our species. We never birthed 8 billion on a planet when we didn't have an elevator, a sky elevator to get people up out of here. Like, you'll blow this thing. There's way too much energy. That's why they're keeping everyone deactivated. Now, let's get into the moon. So what happens here then is that good king, that angel, Malachim, whatever you want to call it, that state of consciousness it got into a war with the lower states of consciousness, other entities that it had created, that it didn't manage properly, it didn't take the responsibilities for, that started saying, hey, let me eat meat. Let me go and do this. Let me go and do this. And as that continued, it wore down that being. Now, who am I talking about? I'm talking about you. What happens is that when you retract, when you're scared, fear, you retract. Someone goes, rah, you jump back. So this means that your pineal gland then closes anytime you come up in the realities of fear and you're actually scared. So what there was then was there was a retreat from the crown, from the throne of the body all the way into the base of the tail. This is the coccyx of the spine, the place where the kundalini rests. Now remember, when a human being generally used to come into this reality, they had tails. That's why there's still kind of a piece left there. But that was to carry the extra vertebrae that on an astral level is more chakras, rings, discs. These are worlds that have already been obtained. This is what you're carrying around as your currency. It's a light generator, basically. All the information and experiences that you had from other realities have been domesticated out of you when they took the tail. But this happens on a spiritual level first before it happens on a physical. But you can find it in both. Now, again, the metaphor, the great angel Michael, this is the Birdman. This is the upper part of the body. Goes to war with Satan. This is the lower part of the body, the urges, the gonads. And then they say that Michael won. Michael lost. Michael loses in an individual's mind every time they choose. This battle is going on all the time. That's why in the New Testament it says, oh, Jesus, the plagiarist Jesus, who's really Apollonius Tyana, Paul, says, oh, the kingdom of heaven is at war at all times, lest it be wrestled away. This means that all the time in your mind, there are going to be ideas that come across that are so low that no one can verbally hear them. This is called the whisper of the serpent. They can't hear it like a voice. They hear it as a thought. But don't take that thought as your own. Like you're everything. So if something is suggesting only a part or a choice, it's a part of the division. It hasn't learned yet. It's still Diablo. It's still Shaddai the demon. That's why, and this is a state of consciousness, that's why it also goes on to say, remember, Abraham is told then by this God, El Shaddai, that your fathers didn't know me by this name, but now you can call me Jehovah. So then what name did my fathers know you by then? So now you realize, again, these are all metaphors. Jehovah then becomes the next stage of El Shaddai. He leaves the stage of the God-man, apex being, all the things that we've collected. We leave the stage of El Shaddai, the demon god, and then begin to metamorphosize into Jehovah, earth, fire, wind, water. You see what I mean? All of this was never meant to be brought out into an external realm as physical entities. You would destroy a world like that. You can't bring such power into limited spheres. Spheres then become the protective sheath, which is the serpent was a sheath. It's the synonymous with the word skin. The serpent was the sheath that held the seed itself, that held what was precious inside until it was ready to emancipate. That way if something eats you, like you can eat some of these seeds and you're going to just dookie it out. You've done nothing to the seed. Excuse my language. But you see what I mean? If you're made out of if you have a core that's so tight that your core of you, the seed of you inside, no matter if something tries to chew it, bite it, or do anything, you're still firm, then you're always in the throne. That's why I said you're then this infinitesimally small, rather than trying to get billions and all this big stuff. You're infinitesimally small and so sleek, you could slide right through the porous holes in the reality. When the sixth and seventh sense begin to actually collide, this means sight and sound begin to actually merge into one another, then you begin to start seeing, just like you say you can smell what you taste. When you start doing that and the pyramid itself starts to come to the focal point, rather than splitting off into the whole divisive worlds that are created through the refraction of the rays, then you're talking about something, and that's where we're at. See, we're not even talking about something anymore. Like, to tell you the truth, I'm actually trying to figure out how I can stop talking more and keep doing what I'm already doing, which is generating the energy of building this organic grid. My body has become a hot spot for positive energy, and actually, harmonic energy to flow throughout this environment, and I'm looking for others that are ready to do that same thing, so that way we can light this thing up and take it to where it really needs to go. But if we're counting on old reptile to figure it out, it doesn't have what it's made out of, meaning that if we're counting on the lower state of our consciousness that is still making up our foundation to lead, that was never its place. We promised these beings that we would take them to where we came from. See, don't be a fool to believe everyone here contains the same degree of the spirit. That's just as that stuff is calculated by the stars. They say it takes 7 incarnations before you can have a full chakra vehicle. So just because we can't figure it out and we don't know why they did it and we can't see it doesn't mean that it's going on, not going on. So then we got reality and then we got actuality. And where I'm moving into like a not a man or not a woman, but an apex. Where I'm moving into is into actuality. I need this. You see, like I'm not a person that's in this world feeling like all of people saying, thanks, Seven, you did a great job, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't do anything for me. If I cannot do something for my species here, I feel still like we're degrading. See, our soldiers, our men with the soldier, the warrior state of mind that can push through dimensions with will in their spiritual class were taken into the physical battlefields and killed. And then what was left was the degenerate men, meaning the men who, in which we make up that ilk. The degenerate men who actually began to mate with all the women that were left. So this is a constant degradation of our species, why they have just basically sat in a sequential state. They haven't messed with their genes. Their genes are already destroyed. That's why they cannot reproduce. But they can make bodies and go into them as they get more synthetic. So let's talk about the moon and what they did. Now, I'm still not saying that that king, that angel, that Malachim, when being challenged by his own sons, didn't become a very difficult problem to deal with. You'll find this story in Egypt. More of Upper Egypt, which is Ethiopia, in that area, Nubia. That area is where it took place. That's where you'll find the mounds and all the real pyramids and things like that. So there was a war. There was a war between the sons against father, ultimate division. That's why the text says, I come to bring sons against mothers against daughters. I come again to bring fathers against their own sons. This is the kind of stuff that they were playing around with over there, and they're clashing and testing metal. So what happened is, all alchemists, by the way. So what we're really dealing with then is that then the king had to bend his knee, meaning that the sons found themselves more stronger than the king and conquered him, but only figured out that they conquered themselves. Now, this is an ongoing story, because now that you've weakened yourself by killing your source, meaning this is our connection to who we are, we don't understand our history. When we weaken ourselves, then a predator starts watching. Look, they're fighting amongst themselves. You see, that kind of thing going on. Basically what that is then is a fail-safe that we've installed inside the program, that just in case we get off track, to put us on track by all means. Do you understand? Do you understand first genetic gene? If we get off track, you need to kick in and basically just do what you are wired to do. See, people think that the worst thing here is death. We're immortals. So we're just playing a game then. Yeah, it's an atrocity to see someone actually mutilated, but I feel that same way when someone goes into a piece of chicken these days. I feel that way about the chicken, and I feel that way about them. Total mutilation. If you saw it from the sky, you would see it as something totally different. Meaning that because we're so up close to it, we don't really see what exactly is going on here. But when you pull off, you actually see it. So let's talk about again what happened to Father. So thus Father was ejected from the planet. Now, because of its non-connection to the planet, this is why the moon becomes gray. It becomes lifeless. It yearns to be back on the planet. Okay? So this comes in the form of the urges that are always yearning, and there's a lot of them. So something takes place then, because after this, the moon moves into this position, or may have already been in that position, it still had a level of control. Just as you'll see, the king, even on his last leg, has some level of control. So in exercising that control, he became ruler of a lower kingdom, meaning that the control can still, there's a lot of control that can be done through a person's genitals. There's a lot of control that can be done through a person's lower part of their body through suggestion. Now, if you don't think that it's actually happening, then why do all the animals know when to go into reproduction? Why do all the seasons know when to change? Who's giving these directions? And that's why you then get again to the moon situation about how it is a refractor, meaning all of the light, because it is the last vessel that light goes into before it reaches Earth, then it has access to that light before it gets to us. And thus, things can be removed. Things can be hacked. And this is what I realized happened, is that then the level of power and control that was going on this planet, and again, let's not just say it was good, Ramses running around, was then usurped by basically a very, very intrepid Borg. Meaning that something like a computer reptile, something that actually dismantled everything that they were working on and using in the wrong way, and thus synthetically began to control the moon. And this is the birth of synthetics. This means that the moon is like a Borg now. It no longer is just an organic celestial body. Something had happened to it when they went up there and played around with it. I guess basically maybe they put a pyramid up there or something. And then they started to be able to control the urges within much of nature and things that are going on in this reality. And, of course, their agenda is only to turn everyone against each other. So this is when animals start running down other animals. Humans start running down other humans. Our urges are not in the right place. We don't plant seeds to grow. You see what I mean? All this starts to happen. Now, don't blame it on the moon. This is why. Let me show you. This is deep stuff, because in the Pauline arts, the first step on the ladder is the moon, which is the angel Gabriel. This means that the first step of your actual consciousness is to rise beyond what the moon is suggesting. So all this stuff was designed because, see, the animals, they have to obey the urges. They're under the dominion of the atomic, or excuse me, I got to get my elements right. But they're under that dominion. But we aren't. We can easily decide, nope, I'm not doing it. And that gives us this whole different level of power. Believe it or not, our greatest power is to resist and to attract. And so when we do that in the proper way, in understanding this knowledge that I've just been so fervently explaining, then we actually get results in the physical reality, not only for ourselves but also others. It is a mental, physical, spiritual thing. You do have to triangulate yourself to a certain degree. This is not Illuminati, but this is that some people are very mentally strong but physically and spiritually weak. And they lean on their mental strength as their only state of balance, but really they're just polarized. And this is why, of course, remember now, this is also how you'll know that they understand all this is going on a spiritual level. Anytime you come out of whack so that they need to deal with you because you've gotten polarized in a way that they can't handle in this society, they send the police, right? Because then they have to ice the pole. Now, for people to think I'm playing around, okay, that's just one word. Interpol. See, they know about the polarity thing, so they know how to switch a person on, switch a person off. Who's they? Again, this synthetic world that has been developed based on nature is now starting to become something that is interweaving itself. So let's talk about it. In nature is everything that you will find between nature and body. I mean, what's up? You can just lay down and project everything that you want in the etheric realm, and then like a Mac, shut off, and then it'll all be erased. You see what I mean? It's not something that you're carrying around with you. Notice how our reality is like collect, 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 and then we start carrying all this weight. When we were really, really moving through the galaxy, we're using a different language. So I'm just going to take a moment.
So we got a break coming up here, James. So, oh man, I got a couple questions on the moon too, a couple observations too that I'd like to bring up right after the break. Also, I think we'll open up the phone lines and take a call or two in this last segment. And so that number is 213-233-3998. And we'll see you guys after the break. It's Tom and Ramon on the 100th Monkey Radio on the Truth Frequency. Mike's are live. Yeah, welcome back to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon, and we have 7 with us, and this is our last segment, and we will open the phone lines for this last 30 minutes, so if you've got a question for 7 or comment, please feel free to give us a ring. 7, something I noticed that caught my attention when you were talking about the moon and it intercepting the light from the sun. As soon as you said that, the first thing that popped in my mind is, oh my God, what's everybody do on the full moon when the moon is farthest away from the sun? That's when everybody kind of goes crazy. Is that like when? Is that what happens when we don't have that controlling factor in there?
Well, that's where, of course, you get the word lunatic.
Right.
I mean, there is a controlling factor because basically what I was explaining earlier is that it speeds up reproduction. And then reproduction actually becomes like the Achilles heel to the planet because obviously you can see there are many kids on the planet that need to be taken care of, but not enough parents, right?
Right.
So you actually understand that was something that occurred in the beginning with this whole story about Adam and Eve, and then there was something that they did. They ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, etc. What that's about actually the act itself, copulation. And that's why they said the serpent suggested it. But really what it's saying is that they did something in this whole reproduction process that they didn't know what the result was going to be. And that's why you notice the first child then was Cain. Cain is the Hebrew word for king. It also means Cohen. It's a priest king. And then, of course, you see the story of Cain. So what are they trying to say here? They're basically saying, at least from that ilk, that the first king that came out was like a wanderer or a drifter, and that he had done something that offended, the hierarchy, et cetera, et cetera. And this is where you get this whole story of, again, that particular lineage. But it's a real thing, because when you go to Brutus, when you go to Bran the Blessed, when you go to the Owls of Albion, then you actually can figure out the real German, meaning the actual germ of, or the beginning of that particular race. So, it's a deep thing, but there's different rays to that crown. That's what I was trying to also bring up earlier, is that if you notice, there were several kingdoms, again, at least 7 angels in certain tenses. And so this is also synonymous with our word angles, which gives us the degrees within a compass. And also degrees are related to fire. As we say, you see there's these degrees within knowledge. As having a master's degree. You see what I mean?
Right.
So knowledge is synonymous with fire, basically. And then when you want to see the dominion, it's the controllers once again battling it out with one another. The same thing that you see on TV. You got the king who is chained down. That's what I was telling you over the break about the moon. You'll see the chains running through it if you can get your third eye and pineal open and take a glance. But then you have the king's chained down, but still exercising some level of dominion in the dream world. That's why it's always related to the whole initiations in the dreams and things of that nature. And then you have this, basically what I believe is some type of computer reptoid, still obviously being in that one state of DNA. They've been cruising throughout the galaxy and at least got the knowledge of computers, hacking the moon in certain tenses, and then utilizing its energy to suggest things to us like what we've created in this synthetic world in our walk away from nature or our mother. So, that's really what happens in this now then, is the light from the individuals, again, have to begin to shine, because it moves all this kind of stuff out of the way. Remember, when you flip on the light, all the darkness retreats to the corners.
Right.
And in the corners is where it still lives. So if you happen to be in the corner of your consciousness, then you will find this whole dark world there. Likewise, if a person is even projecting from their lower chakras and seeing the world that way, then they're going to feel the energy corresponding to the inverted version of their lower chakras. And let me explain this very briefly. Now, what you have then is that you have either a person's energy is retreated to the coccyx of their spine, the location of Kundalini, or it has actually retreated into the soles of its feet, of the person's foot. This is called total inversion. This is what Illuminati and all these individuals are engaging in. They send the Kundalini energy down. And then the person's spiritual experience is really warped from that point. Right. And it's because they've actually gone into their lower state of consciousness before they've gone into the higher state of the consciousness. You see, it's a simple direction thing. That's why the whole argument between the Eastern Western world mysticism was whether the energy should come from below and up, or one should perceive it's coming from below and up, or from above and down. And this was like the biggest rift in all that knowledge. You see what I mean? And it was because you had those that were practicing this knowledge of the dark, or the what they call the black serpent. Now, remember, this is still an evolution of humanity, because there were other ones that just went and followed the white serpent, never realizing that both were zigzagging up the tree, meaning that if you follow this good and evil thing on the side of your head, you're going to find yourself not in action. You're going to find yourself listening more and then trying to make a decision, when really you should just, go, shut up, guys, let me get into action. Because if they weren't able to be commanded, then they wouldn't be talking. You see what I mean? So there's this thing that we need to do. Like I said, we need to start talking to ourselves. Likewise, you have these pathogens, and this is the interesting thing to explain, because it accompanies the diet, it accompanies wheat, it accompanies things that we are forcefully fed, meaning that we seem to find it in everything, and it accumulates a large amount of worms in our system. Now, each of these worms actually are a frequency, and for people, if I don't get to it today, if you want to get more information about this, or you want to find a way to clean them out, you can actually refer to the energy store on the site. But this is a serious thing. It's where once you accumulate a certain amount of candida, hookworm, tapeworm, these kind of worms, they're giving off a certain frequency, just like Rife told everyone. Every single virus, every single thing has a particular frequency. Now, what happens if this frequency starts to replicate so much that your whole body becomes this frequency almost?
Right.
It's the more dominant frequency, right? So it's going to win. So thus, every time you feel an urge to go do something that ties into these things still surviving, then you go and do it. That's the real story of the reptilian.
Right.
It's not a hybrid reptile lizard face running around on third dimension, although there may be a couple around, whoopie-doo. But it's really more of an internal thing because that's the only thing that's going to affect you. Now remember, the symbol of the serpent means that it's the silent but poisonous. The silence is that it speaks in thoughts. It's actually speaking in a whisper, which is below the vibratory frequency of the ear. That was what the metaphor meant. So you can't read a person's ideas unless you know how to tap into that frequency, right? But that is a frequency of information, just like Wi-Fi you can't see. So there is a broadcasting going on from a collective going inside of your body of earthworms, tapeworms, basically lower states of consciousness saying, go and do something. And that's as simple as it gets. So you don't need Prism, Verizon, phones that can pull souls out of the body, put souls in the body. All this stuff that they're making up now that they can do, basically. You don't need that if you can do a little Wolfenstein Creed and a little MK Ultra. You see what I mean? It's all you only need to understand the mind and how the mind works. And that's why, now here's another thing. Notice how this reptilian robotoid thing, it doesn't know about spirits. It didn't know about spirits. That's why if you look in Nazi Germany, when they took over that side of things, that's when Aryan became then a German rather than llamas in the mountains, right? So during that particular time, you'll find in their experiments, especially in the paranormal division, an incessant desire to create and clone, to only become completely frustrated when the clones were not coming out properly because they didn't have reason. Then figuring out the reason actually is the soul, which passed right through the beaker. They couldn't figure out the ectoplasmic field of it, so they couldn't contain it. So then they set off out on the next mission to fake like they lost the war, then come back and control every soul, rather than, if you can't have the souls, why not control the souls?
Right.
You can't make them. You see what I mean? And so that's why you find in the United States the greatest genetic program that's ever hatched on this planet. And you can tell that because every other country, everyone's looking like brother and sister still. You see what I mean? This is a real thing. And so now some of these genetics is actually mixed up into a very potent cocktail and are actually firing into this reality energy to actually pump everyone up. The entire reality can self-substantiate and emancipate as long as it actually sees the exact replica of perfect DNA, meaning that it is great men's challenge, great women's challenge to perfect themselves so that they can reflect they then become the celestial body, reflect onto others, and then the others see the pattern. Wow, that's it. That's me. See, I'm talking to only people that are me.
Right.
Other than that, you couldn't understand me. You see what I mean? Like it's like these are factual things. I love to deal with only facts because when you start telling people the body's the universe, no, it's not. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to have to sit here and beg you to realize that you're the universe. So you see how it's all interpolated? We all have to actually tap dance to make people do something, or actually can't make anyone do anything, but get people to do something that actually they're going to need to do, whether it's this time or a few aeons from now. Now, just imagine if we can speed things up a little bit. And that's really what's going on now, is that my consciousness, along with individuals around me, because we're just getting closer to the control point, is actually starting to dissolve a lot of these conflicts and confusion within rudimentary stuff that it doesn't even matter anymore. You see what I mean? It's like we're like when they talk about, and this is the big statement I have to that. Okay, so Project Prism has violated some rights. Man, my rights been violated. You see what I mean? It's like, man, you violated my rights, my spiritual rights. You see what I mean? You didn't let me know. You cut me off. You Skyped me. You see what I mean? It's like I now need to recuperate. Like I don't even have the right minerals to nurture my spiritual vehicle. You see what I mean? It's like this is a serious thing, and it doesn't mean that I'm going to go and run and blow something up. I implode. It's like that's again the difference between one and the other, and so that's sometimes what happens. Like I said, I take it as I came to Earth, I got the T-shirt. I really want to help my species. That's everything that's alive, and I'm just doing as much as I can to do that. And it's starting to become something that is even beyond what I could conceive. Like when I go to sleep at night, my dream is like a Mandelbulb. I mean, it's like a Mandelbrot set now. It's completely unloaded most of the chairs and the tables and the cars and the hood and all these other different scars that are in the body. Because, of course, we always will retreat to the state of consciousness that is most dominant. And that's why I say we can come up on the throne today. This is not something you have to wait till 2012 for. Oops, it's already gone.
Yeah.
You can actually say right now, what I'm going to do is the war. I'm locking the gates. First of all, let me rephrase. Excuse me. It wasn't like I jumped into it like I'm locking the gates. Hold. It wasn't like that. I came from the Cossacks. Shoot, I may have even came from the soul, according to how I was thinking, meaning the sole of the foot. So from that level, though, I climbed up that ladder. Now, of course, it's a lot easier to fall down if you're only 3 steps up than when you get about 50 or 60 vertebrae up, or, you know, what do they say, like 20-something vertebrae, you fall off the ladder, you're going to get hurt. So this is also a spiritual progress. Everyone has to see this is terrain modification. This is not something that you're going to make happen overnight. You don't want to kill anything, meaning that you don't want to go at your body and say, I'm going to kill these parasites, and I'm going to kill. You give everything an option to pass. And notice how when you do a cleanse, it passes out of you. So this is, again, the real tongues of how our whole life is created, and it has to become serious to us. And what did it for me just recently, I'm always getting extra boosts of it, is that I had a daughter. And so I look at my daughter and I say, man, I came back again. There's no separation there. And so, and then when I look at someone else's daughter, someone else's son, I have that same feeling. And so, but that also means that we need to get something that is necessary. This is something that I've already took care of. But we need to get something that actually is going to do something with these lower vibratory octaves. Every tone changes on the octave. They wear the 8-pointed star. That's oct. It's October. That's the month that they have the crazy Halloween, right? So you'll see that, you know, it's labeled as our 10th month, but really it's our 8th. Just like our Nov is 9, but is our 11th month. And our Dec is 12, but it's our 10th. It means 10. So everything that they're telling us basically is not true. So that's great then. If I know how to flip truthful non-truthful things 180 degrees to make them true. Meaning that I can start to insinuate then, if they're not telling me this, what else they're not telling me. All I got to do is start coming into the conclusion that one of the things, and I tell people, all you have to do is come into the conclusion that one of the things that I said today is true. And it'll start to take and undermine all of the untruths. This is real organic deprogramming. And so, and then this, again, this is us. This is our story. So there's no entities, whether he's reptile, whether he's the king, moon, titan, chained down, still trying to exert rulership through the black snake, which is oil, or whether it's high-rank seraphim, can't ascend past the third heaven, all white light coming through. Hello, it's still milk. It's white. It's not clear. Meaning that white is a color. Black is a color. Clear is the absence of color. You got people thinking white and black is the absence of color. This is when you actually screw up a person's firmware. Right. Then illusions begin. There's holes in everything. It's like nobody can really explain anything because none of it's founded on truth. We have no foundation. So that's, again, the tail is used for balance, right? Notice the tail on the monkey is used for balance. So what happens? You cut the monkey's tail off. He's going to have to reorientate himself. Now, there's monkeys with no tails. I've seen them too. But this is what we have to know, that our roots were cut. So all of what I'm explaining about the king, about the moon, and about the yearning, about Pharaoh, and about him misusing the power, and then him being kicked out, usurped by the sons, and then the sons falling short to the daughters, and then all of that was in the tail. Now notice, T-A-I-L.
T-A-L-E. Yeah.
The story. Yeah. So it's there. And now we just have to allow it to give us enough energy to give it a push one more time. Do you notice how this kind of stuff, about 7 or 8 years ago, somebody finding out, man, the idea is explosive. Right. The idea may blow a couple lights. People be like, oh my goodness, eureka. We've actually got it. The great arcanum is in view. Aha, I got the moment. Now people seem to not have enough. That's too much exertion of energy. Great.
Yeah.
All right, what else? You see, and that's because our energy system that we would normally be relying on right now to bring us up to the next level of epiphany is actually depleted because there is a vampire in the system. See, these are not symbiotes, these parasites. They eat plastic. They eat calcium that is already sedimentized. They eat mercury. See, the worms have created a symbiotic relationship with the human, but they are still vampires. This is no different than a shark that has these little fish that eat the fungi off of it, and then it keeps those little fish safe from the big fish. You see what I mean? This is the big fish then here is us going out into the galaxy and actually trusting who we are to be able to defend us rather than the king or who's taken over the king's throne. This is like, notice the king is our currency. His currency is on the face, his representatives and those who have pledged allegiance to the king, which is all what the initiation and the Masonic rites are about. They actually serve the king. That is the God that they trust, because God is God. He's good. He's a particular entity. He's a particular being. So this is why when you look deep into this, you find it's not a joke. You have real individuals that have made pacts and oaths to keep you back. And so that is, again, the agenda, because what you see here on in this world is the more beings that are here under the moon to control, the more power it has. And now it's using the children, meaning it's using us against our galactic parents. This is, some people are like, wow, that's it. That's what I knew was going on. But look, it's inside. Now they're using us to destroy ourselves. The mother is killing the child when they give the child the kind of food and things they're giving them. That's the whole child sacrifice. You see, it's always put in another way here on the physical reality. It's, oh yeah, it's our God. Man, it's the nocturnal mind state of darkness trying to instruct the light. How is the lower body ever going to tell the higher body what to do when the higher body's already been there? It knows how to create. And I'll finish with this thought. Notice how when the greatest thing then, obviously I've come to the conclusion the body's a universe, and that means the greatest thing then is that we can actually create a universe. Every time we make a baby or something, there goes one right there, whether we know it or not, right? Now, the interesting part is that if you give me all the stuff that I need, I can make a Galaxy S4. I can make an iPhone 5. I think I got the mind for it. But I cannot sit here and technically break down how I'm going to put together a baby. So you see the situation here? The highest level of knowledge that we think we can attain with all of this synthetic stuff that they put everywhere doesn't even hold a match at all to the magnificence of us creating something that we just do naturally. I don't know how I did it. Imagine somebody say, how do you do that? They see your magic, right? How do you do that? I don't know how to do it. I just did it. You see the jealousy? So that's also what the jealousy is. When they can't reproduce then, meaning when the worm no longer can grow and no longer be the host, and started to use you as the host, when the worm can no longer grow, then it's jealous and upset and mad. You see, there is a physical correspondence to all of these frequencies, but it goes across hyperdimensional worlds. This is why you may see him as a worm on this planet, and then on another planet, he may actually be in control. But where are these planets, my friend? They're in the place between heaven and earth.
In the mind.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so when we start to enter these fields, you don't need to ask yourself a question of, did that really happen or not? What are you using to authenticate that, first of all? Meaning that when a person has a spiritual experience and they see something occur, the first thing to ask is, did that really happen? Oh my goodness, that is the wrong question to ask. First of all, who are you asking? The second thing is that, are you actually expecting some physical occurrence to occur and to confirm that of something that you experienced on the physical plane, especially right away? Right away does not happen here. That's what the whole thing about time is. It's basically not right away. Instant is non-time. So this is how we can identify where non-linear is. I'm already at the gate. Meaning that once you understand that you're the portal, that's why I say that eyes are a gateway to the soul. When you see someone in their eyes, you can become attracted to them. When you're attracted, then you dive in. And this is an actual thing that we're doing. So just like that, you have smaller organism that will land on your nose, bored. And if it can get, excuse me, I'm polarized. If it can get all the way into your system and go all the way through your system without facing any kind of resistance, or which means immune system, then it will try you. You see what I mean? So I actually put it all back together for everyone to make it simple. There are things that board you all the time. Generally, they try to board you from the neck up. That's why most of your orifices are from the neck up. Your mouth, you put your food in there. The nose, the ears, all the orifices are there, and there's thousands of them in your head. So watch the shampoo. So what happens is that when you put it in, then the body strength now comes into challenge. Now there's a war, and if the body is already broken down, then it loses that war every time. And then when the victor has an idea and suggests that you should go and basically kill yourself, then you obey. And that's what we're dealing with here on this planet. So, but not for long.
So, let me interrupt you because we're down to the last 4 minutes. One of the things I've noticed too is, like, especially when people are going through cleansings, they tend to get, for example, when people do kidney and liver cleansings, they get this anger. It's almost like an untapped anger that they don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah. It comes up.
For example, a lot of the cleansings will say, like, try to do it before the full moon, because that's when a lot of the parasites, they lay their eggs.
Also, there's a whole process, and really it's based on, like, the moving of the seasons, because remember, each organ should be cleaned out during a certain season.
Right.
And so that whole process is also based on just how the earth is moving, et cetera. And this is the stuff that we really need to be knowing. After all, it's the vehicle we're living in. It's the real house. So, but yes, it starts to come out of the sediment, because remember, what happens is, and I'll be brief, when the person's kundalini or the seed of themselves is then stuck in the caucasus or the sole of the feet, what then is on top of it, meaning what has built itself on top of it, is fear. All the situations that have occurred that actually become what holds the person back from raising into this higher state of energy and going back to the throne. So anytime that sediment starts to be moved, it raises those fears, and those fears are angers, and that anger is fire, and that fire is blinding. You see, notice how when a person gets angry, after they're done, they're like, man, when a person's angry, they don't consider that you're maybe their husband or wife, and that, you know, you guys have done great things together. They don't consider any of that. It's blinding. So that's why I said they serve a blind God. Remember, fire is not air. So why it may be attractive, that's why they say don't get too close to the light or you may get burned. This is what happens in those initiations that you see of those secret societies. And so, you know, another level of knowledge, but hopefully I can come forward at some point again.
Wow, Seven. Yeah, this is one that I think everybody's going to have to definitely download and listen to a couple times, because this was just packed full.
Yeah.
So what do you got coming up, Seven? We got a minute and a half
obviously,
here.
I have a show tomorrow. It's astroquest.tv. But I'm moving into some other stuff. I want to really work with the curriculum more and get that tightened down. Obviously, we're really dealing with the body more. I have a good partner of mine from True Sparta, and he's in here, and man, we're making the body implode, and we're really just seeing how much more expansive this thing can really get if you're putting an MBS or a mind, body, soul thing into it. And so that's really what's up on the ground. Obviously, we have many more projects coming in the future, but it's just great to be present and just in the moment and just absorbing that we're here.
Nice.
But that's a magnificent thing in itself.
Resistance2010.com and
for sure, or astroquest.com. They can reach us there. That's a little bit easy to remember, but they go to the same place.
Great. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us, man. This is definitely one I'm going to have to download and listen to over a few times. So, man, thanks everybody for listening.